All right. Now we're going to continue on with the physical, unchanging characteristics that make up all arthropods. If you remember from last time, we looked at 5 external characteristics: bilateral symmetry, segmented appendages, an exoskeleton made with chitin, externally segmented bodies, and appendages modified for feeding, or mouth parts. Now we're going to move on to the internal characteristics that all arthropods share. The first has to do with the elimination of wastes. All arthropods have a way to package and eliminate waste products, either waste from digestion, from metabolism, or from other processes within the body. This process is called excretion. Now, the major excretory organs of the insect are called the Malpighian tubules. These are named after a guy who discovered them, Dr. Malpighian. Because they're named after somebody, when you write out the name, you always capitalize it. So we've got our Malpighian tubules. They are these spaghetti-like structures that extend throughout most of the abdomen. They will hang off of some portion of the digestive system, and they'll kind of float around in the bug blood, or in the hemolymph. You can see a drawing of them up there at the top. This picture down at the bottom right gives you an idea of their relative size. The number of tubules is different for different species. Now, the job of the Malpighian tubules is to remove nitrogenous wastes, things like ammonium. This is floating around in the blood as a byproduct of metabolism, so it is sucked up by these Malpighian tubules. These tubules work kind of like our kidneys. They filter the blood and then dump those waste products back into the digestive system for conversion and excretion. In insects, the nitrogenous wastes are converted into urea and uric acid and then sent out into the big bad world in the form of bug poop or urine or something of that nature. So the excretion, or the excretory system, is a way of cleaning up the circulatory system. So this brings us to our 7th characteristic that all arthropods share. They all have some sort of circulation or circulatory system. Many arthropods have what we call an open circulatory system. This is a bit different from what other animals have. Humans, for example, have a closed circulatory system. Our blood is pumped via the heart around our body through a series of tubes in the form of arteries, veins, and capillaries. This system allows the blood to get to all of the cells that need oxygen and that need nutrients and need waste taken away. Insects do something a little bit different. They have this open circulatory system. It doesn't have those tubes. It doesn't have arteries or veins or capillaries. Instead, the insects have this big body cavity called the hemocyl. So this hemocyl is filled with fluid, and that fluid moves the substances around. This fluid is the insect version of blood that we call the hemolymph. So hemolymph fills the hemocyl. This type of circulatory system allows for bathing of organs in hemolymph. So it brings them in direct contact with the substances that they need, with nutrients, with oxygen, with all of that sort of stuff. Now, the hemolymph does move around the hemocyl a little bit. It's pumped forward through a tubular heart that's found along the dorsal surface of the insect. So this right here looks a lot like a really big artery or something of that nature. And so it pumps forward, and then the hemolymph sort of trickles back downward. So it keeps this hemolymph circulating throughout the hemocyl. So one of the things that the hemolymph can help move around is oxygen, which brings us to our 8th characteristic. All arthropods engage in some form of respiration. In insects especially, but in a lot of arthropods, the exoskeleton has to allow for oxygen to get in somehow. So it has to be able to get to the tissues, and it has to allow for carbon dioxide to get out. It doesn't work the same way as our respiration. Imagine trying to take a breath the way that we do, right? So we take a breath, our lungs fill with oxygen through negative pressure, and then it moves into the carrier cells in the blood. imagine trying to take that big deep breath with a really heavy suit of armor on. It would take a lot of energy to move that exoskeleton through enough to draw in a full lungful of air, right? So instead, insects have these little holes, these small holes in their exoskeletons called spiracles. These allow for the diffusion of oxygen into the body and the diffusion of CO2 out of the body. So this is what a spherical looks like up close. You can see right here, got the circle around there and this line down the center. This line will open up, allowing air in and out. Now you can see the sphericals down the side of the body of this caterpillar. Oftentimes, you will see one spiracular opening on each side of an insect in each segment. So the sphericals will open up into tubes called trachea. These trachea are filled with hemolymph, and oxygen will dissolve into that hemolymph. And then the trachea will branch into smaller tubes, the tracheoles. The tracheoles are attached to muscles, allowing oxygen to get where it's needed. So hemolymph is a little bit different than human blood. It doesn't have those carrier cells. Instead, oxygen just dissolves directly into it. So carbon dioxide works about the same way. It comes out via the tracheoles to the trachea, and it diffuses out via the sphericals. Now, the thing that actually controls all of this breathing, this movement, this everything, is the ventral nerve cord and the dorsal brain, the ninth thing that is present in all arthropods. Now, let's just take a quick moment to review some of these terms that I'm going to be saying. When I say the word dorsal, I mean along the back surface of the body. The ventral surface of the body is along the front surface, and lateral means towards the sides, while medial means towards the middle. So when I say dorsal, I mean on the back, ventral in the front, lateral on the sides, medial in the middle. This holds true on insects. So we've got the dorsal surface along the back surface of that wasp right here, the ventral surface along that front surface. Then we have a couple of extra terms. Anterior means something that is towards the head of the body, while posterior means something that is towards the butt end of the body. Insects also have these medial and lateral terms. So lateral means towards the sides again, while medial means down the middle or down the center. So if I say something is on the medial dorsal surface, I mean the middle back of the bug. Well, something is on the lateral surface, it's going to be on the sides of the bug. Make sense? All right. So when I talk about this ventral nerve cord and this dorsal brain, I'm talking about the placement of these two organs in the body. Humans have a dorsal nerve cord, our spinal cord. It goes down that dorsal surface of our inner body. Insects, on the other hand, have this big bundle of nerves that sends messages all down that ventral surface, so right there of the body. So it's opposite from where humans have it. Now, it is attached to the brain, which is found in this dorsal region. So here we've got it up here in the spider, and the ventral nerve cord goes down sort of this way. Now, this is what the dorsal brain looks like up close and in radiographs and everything like that. So this is an actual picture of an ant where you can see the brain through it. How awesome is that? So you got this dorsal brain that's attaching to a ventral nerve cord. The brain has all these different lobes attached to it, which you don't need to know for the purposes of this class, but it is a relatively complex organ. So a dorsal brain, ventral nerve cord. Finally, all arthropods have some sort of reproductive strategy. Many arthropods will exhibit what we call sexual reproduction. So sexual reproduction means that a male and a female are both necessary. They combine their DNA during mating, and that combined DNA forms the embryo of the next generation. Some arthropods, however, exhibit asexual reproduction. So this means that only a female is necessary to form the next generation, and all of her offspring are clones of herself. This reproduction therefore occurs without fertilization, and it's called parthenogenesis. So we've got sexual reproduction, which results in offspring that have unique DNA, or parthenogenesis, which results in offspring that are clones of the mother. Now, one interesting insect that exhibits parthenogenesis is the aphid. This is what an aphid looks like up close. These are those little tiny green or black bugs that feed on all your plants that are super annoying. They exhibit parthenogenesis. The females can produce more female aphids and do so very, very quickly. But they're also a little weird. They can switch to sexual reproduction if and when it is needed. So depending on the environment, they can either mate and make a new mix of genes for the next generation, or simply clone themselves and have clones of themselves for the next generation. They can go back and forth. So that's it. 10 characteristics that are common to all arthropods. If an arthropod has all 10 of these characteristics, then we put them in the phylum Arthropoda. Up next, we're going to be looking at the major classes found in Arthropoda. Let me know if you have any questions.